few months ago, the Pew Research Center issued a report called A Portrait of Jewish Americans. It's received tons of comments and articles ever since. We'll be talking about it with historian and activist Lenni Brenner. Brenner is an American Jew best known for rediscovering deals between Zionist groups and fascists in the 1930s and 40s. Several decades ago, he wrote Jews in America Today, a study of what U.S. Jews had achieved economically and where they were going politically. Right now, he's speaking to us from Hamden, Connecticut. Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
My first question is why any of this information in the Pew study should be of interest to those of us who are human rights activists involved in supporting Palestinian rights.
Okay, there's two or three reasons why. Number one, they devoted a chapter of their study to how American Jews see Zionism. So, right away, that's a reason to study it. But the attention to the survey actually goes to more than just that. What they did was they showed that a majority of Jewish marriages today, 71%, 58%, excuse me, I'll explain the 71% in a second. 58% of Jewish marriages today are to Gentiles. In other words, a majority of young Jews marry Gentiles. When
by Gentiles, you mean non-Jews?
Non-Jews,
okay.
Any non-Jew.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you talk about the Jews, the Pew survey estimated that 10% of the Jews are Orthodox Jews. That's the traditional back to Moses kind of thing. When you subtract them from the rest of the Jews, as far as the rest of the Jews are concerned, 71% of young Jews marry Gentiles. So the first thing that attracts the attention of everybody to the survey is what does this mean in terms of the Jewish community in the United States? How much longer is it going to be around?
No, just because they're marrying non-Jews, does that mean Judaism or the American Jewish community is going to disappear?
Well, it won't disappear because you have, as I say, the Orthodox Jews. But let me take it a step further. 10% of the Jews are Orthodox. About 18% are what they call conservatives, and about 35% are Reform Jews. About 22% of the Jews say they don't have any religion at all. And when you get to young Jews, it's 32%. In other words, 1/3 of young Jews say they are not religious. Now, what the polls showed definitely was that if a Jew marries a Gentile, that couple is much less likely to raise their kid or their kids as Jews than the Jews who marry other Jews. Some of the mixed marriage couples raise their kids as Jews, but others don't. Furthermore, when you look at the as I say, 10%, 18%, 35%, what they very clearly show is that what you get is sort of a migration of the Jews. In other words, a lot of kids are raised as Orthodox Jews and they abandon Orthodoxy. I did. I was raised as an Orthodox Jew, and now I'm an atheist. Okay, and that's very common. But a very big percentage of Orthodox Jews would become conservative Jews. Now, what the conservatives got going a few decades ago to try to come into contact with the modern world. Like for example, after World War II, you had a huge migration of hundreds of thousands of Jews from out of the big cities into the suburbs. And what that meant was that if they continued to be Orthodox, if they couldn't drive a car on a Saturday, that meant how were they going to get to their suburban synagogues, which were too far away from their homes to walk to. So the conservatives said, hey, you can, all right, given mountain times, you can drive your car on Saturday to the synagogue. The Orthodox wouldn't accept that. The conservatives did. The Reform took it much more beyond that. They abandoned the kosher laws, etc., and eventually they what they said was no more segregating the women in the synagogues, and then the Reform began to put on women rabbis, and now they have lesbian rabbis, etc. Now the conservatives have moved to the point where they now also have women rabbis, but not lesbian rabbis. You know.
Now, going back to the Pew report, I thought it was very interesting that an awful lot of American Jews think you can be a Jew and not be religious. That
absolutely. The majority of American Jews, nobody doubts that I'm a Jew. You know, I mean, all of these groups. I left the Orthodox. I worked I was sent into Syria in the 1980s by the Neturei Carta, which is an Orthodox Jewish anti-Zionist group, to see how the Jews were doing in Syria. They never doubted for a minute that I was a Jew, even though, I made it very clear to them that I was an atheist, so
people see it as ancestry and culture, that
exactly,
is a big thing.
Exactly. In other words, if you want to be religious, that's fine, but you're a Jew as long as you define yourself as a Jew, and as you say, most of the non-religious Jews to say, look, I know I'm of Jewish background. I'm not ashamed of it. I read a lot about the Holocaust, etc. I'm a Jew, and everybody accepts it. So, go ahead.
What about Israel? Are the views of American Jews the same? Certainly back in 48, overwhelmingly American Jews called themselves Zionist. What about now?
Okay. Now, they were the biggest weakness of the Pew survey is they didn't directly ask people whether or not are you a pro-Zionist, are you anti-Zionist, etc. They asked questions about what do you think about Israel, but they didn't ask them what do you think about Zionism. Now, according to the Pew survey, and I'm literally reading from it right now, more than half of U.S. Jews say U.S. support for Israel is about right. That's 54%. Although 31% say the U.S. is not supportive enough of Israel, but 11% think the U.S. is too supportive of Israel. Now, by comparison, 41% of the general public thinks support for Israel is about right. 25% say it's not. The U.S. isn't supportive enough, and 22% say the U.S. is too supportive of the Jewish state.
So now, Israel, the U.S. Jews are more supportive of Israel than the American public as a whole.
Oh yes, but now this is the Pew survey. I'm quoting it. Interestingly enough, more white evangelical Protestants then Jews think the U.S. is currently not sufficiently supportive of Israel. 46% of evangelicals think Obama is not supportive enough, as opposed to 31% of American Jews who think that he's not supportive enough.
And there was something similar with the question about, did God give Israel to the Jews?
That's the most wonderful thing of all. More Gentile Americans think that God gave Israel to the Jews than Jews think that God gave Israel to the Jews. Now, you see, that sort of tells you something very important about Reform Judaism. Reform Judaism really, I mean, this is me talking, not the Pew survey. Reform Judaism really is kind of like a leftover of being Jewish, but when you start defining it, it has very little in the way of traditional theology. You know, like the average Reform Jew, laughs at the idea that God gave Israel to the Jews, and in fact, let me put it this way, the overwhelming majority of Jews, religious and atheists, anti-Zionists and pro-Zionists, have nothing but personal contempt for those evangelical Protestant, what they call Christian Zionists. When I say that a majority of young Jews marry Gentiles, I assure you, a majority of the young Jews who marry Gentiles do not marry Christian Zionists.
Right.
They laugh at them, because the Christian Zionists believe that God gave Israel to the Jews, and the establishment of the Jewish state is a precondition for the coming back of Jesus Christ. And then the Jews, like everybody else, are going to have to make up their minds whether or not they believe in Jesus or whether they're going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
So, the average American Jew says this is craziness, but the pro-Zionist, their attitude is, hey, we need their pro-Israel attitude to whip up the politicians.
And the Israeli leaders fall all over themselves in whining and dining the Christian Zionists.
Absolutely. I mean, as a similar thing, I mean, this is not the Pew survey, I mean, this is me talking. The Israeli government has wonderful relations with India because their attitude is India is a Hindu country, and it's always in fights with Muslims or, Pakistan, etc. So, let me put it this way. In talking about, we pretty much defined American Jews. I mean, the 2/3 of American Jews are not members of synagogues. In other words, even the ones that say I'm a Reformed Jew, they don't go to the synagogue, to the local Reformed synagogue. Mm-hmm. They just haven't fought their way all the way through to breaking with the religion, because there's no reason why they have to. The most important thing that, again, the Pew survey can only ask so many questions and can only give you so many things, but the mixed marriage rate is a sign of the sharp decline of anti-Semitism in the United States. So the result is that there's no reason why, no anti-Semitic push to make Jews want to go to Israel. If I got to escape from here and go to Israel. It works the other way around. Israelis migrate to the United States more than Americans migrate to Israel. Mm-hmm. Now, because they're looking for jobs. Now, let me take it a step further. As I say, the the Pew survey shows 11% think the U.S. Of American Jews think U.S. is too supportive of Israel, and the young Jews are very, are more critical than old Jews of Israel, etc. But when you look at the Congress of the United States, there's no 11% of Congress that thinks America is too supportive of Israel. I mean, in other words,
why is that then? Why is that?
Okay. America is a capitalist democracy. What that means is, when it comes to elections, money talks, BS walks, as the saying goes. All right? Okay. Now, Ron Campos, who's the head of the Washington Bureau of the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, which is sort of like the Jewish establishment's Associated Press, his estimate is that, he says that the estimates are between 1/3 and 2/3 of the campaign contributions going to the Democratic Party are Jewish. Now, he means by that personal contributions, not corporation contributions. And that's super important to the Democratic Party, because for the most part, they don't get that many corporate, as many corporate donations as the Republicans. So as far as the politicians are concerned, what they're concerned is who's giving us the money. Now, I just did a breakdown of the Forbes 400 list of the richest people in America. It's an annual survey that they do. And my estimate, my number is 139 out of the 400 are Jews. Now, a lot of them, they're being Jewish is almost like a joke. Their mother or their grandmother was a Jew or something like that.
So what is that, about a quarter of the richest?
More than that. It's more like, let's say 30%. I mean, but some of your listeners can count, and they can do their own estimate of the percentage of Jews. Now, understand, I emphasize, a lot of these guys have nothing to do with the Jewish religion. Like Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's guy, is an open atheist. Okay. What he likes about Israel is simply that it's a high-tech society, so he has a lot of things, working with them. And Larry Page, who I think he runs Google, don't hold me exactly which one is which, but I don't think he was even bar mitzvah, But from the point of view of the politicians, their attitude is these guys are not anti-Zionists. So therefore, I don't, put this up in the mind of a politician. Their attitude is, if I'm for Israel, yay, whoopee, hooray for Israel, these guys will give me money. All of them will give me money, including the guys that don't give a damn about Zionism, because they are not radicals. They're not anti-Zionists. But if I criticize Israel, then the money, and I'm a Democrat, then the next time I run for office, the Zionists will give money to the Republican opponent. So you get the point. It's a case of the politicians are more Zionists than the Jews, because I emphasize all these Jews who are critical of the United States as too supportive of Israel, they're they're not anti-Zionist, most of them. They're just, their attitude is, hey, Israel should exist, but get out of the West Bank.
So what is the lesson, then? I mean, for people who want to get justice in the Middle East, we ought to develop our own billionaires, or can we expect U.S. Jews to be less supportive of Israel as years go by? What's the lesson there?
Definitely, we can expect young Jews to become less and less supportive of Israel, because we know now, right now, there's an operation called Birthright Israel, which is funded by some multimillionaires and billionaires, plus the state of Israel, and they brought over about 200,000, maybe 250,000 young Jews for free 10-day trips to Israel. But when the kids thank you very much, it was a wonderful trip, but when they come back, the immense majority of them don't become Zionists. They come right back, they marry a Gentile, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, as far as they're concerned, it's a freebie. Now it's reached the point where the Israeli government, I just read in the Jerusalem Post, the Israeli government is about to spend about $1 billion up to dealing with, get this, anti-Semitism and intermarriage among in the diaspora. In other words, they're going to literally spend money campaigning against mixed marriage in America. Now, I mean, wow. I mean, now that's not going to work. I mean, let me put it this way. Birthright Israel isn't working. And campaigning against mixed marriages not only isn't going to work, demonize young Jews. Don't you be telling me who I want to marry, who I should marry. Go to hell. All right. Before you go, I wanted to talk to you about your book, Zionism in the Age of the Dictators. I understand it's being reissued. Can you talk to us about it? Go ahead. You were saying something? Tell us what it's about and when it's being reissued. Okay. It's coming out in about 2 weeks. I'm going down to Atlanta, Georgia, where it's being published, to give some lectures down there as a start off. It's a book that was published originally in 1983 in Britain, because I couldn't get an American publisher then. And it got rave reviews. The London Times praised it, and et cetera, et cetera. And it got reviewed all over the world. But in the United States, the only one who really pushed it was Alex Coburn. Now, basically, what it says is, hey, everybody knows that Hitler killed the Jews. That's what Hitler did to the Jews. But what did the Zionists do for the Jews during the Hitler period? And what it showed, what I was able to document thoroughly, was that when Hitler came to power in 1933, the German Zionist Federation said, hi, guy, you want the Jews out of here? We want the Jews in Palestine. Let's sit down and do a deal. And they worked out a trade agreement. A German Jew would buy German goods and ship them to Palestine, and the Zionists would sell German goods all over the Middle East, and give the Jew if he arrived in Palestine, they would give him let's say 80% of what he spent on the thing, on the goods. And going to Palestine was the cheapest way for a rich Jew to send money out of Germany. If he tried to send money to New York City, let's say they'd knock him for 25% of his money. But if he went to Palestine with the goods, it was only like 15%. So it was a wonderful trade agreement, and
wonderful for Germany.
Wonderful for the Zionists. I mean, that's the point. In other words, their attitude was, hey, we can use all this German Jewish money to build Zionism in Palestine. So the result was that they actually invited the head of the Jewish office of the SS, Count von Mildenstein, to Palestine for a 6-month visit. And then when he came back, he wrote pro-Zionist articles in the Angriff, which was the SS's propaganda magazine. And this continued right until September 1939, this trade agreement. The Zionists were selling oranges in Europe using Nazi boats to ship the oranges.
Well, we've interviewed you on this subject, and that actually lets us remind listeners that we have 2 archives all about this. One is an archive of Lenni Brenner articles, and the second one is called Zionists' Dirty Secrets, which is also getting into the stuff that was done in the 30s and 40s, and then later also, like with Argentinians and so on. So that's something to look at. Well, I appreciate you talking to me today.
Let me toss one last thing in.
All right.
If folks want to talk to me about getting the book, they can contact me at BrennerL, BRENNERL 21 at AOL.com.
All right, and we'll also print that in the description of the podcast. Again, thank you for talking to us about these subjects.
And I thank you and thank all you folks for listening.
All right, this is Stanley Heller. Thanks for listening to the Struggle Podcast.